Hey everybody, Will here from Downtime Activities. I'm stuck at home today watching a puppy, but I figured I'd try and get a little bit of work done kind of in the meantime. So I'm doing another video similar to the Hunt Showdown one that I did some time ago, and taking a look at another game that we can steal some elements from for use on the tabletop. The game that we're doing today is Ghost Recon Wildlands. Now, I don't want this series to be about reviewing games. Obviously, I'm going to choose games that I like, or at least games that I like a specific element of well enough to try and use it on the tabletop. Ghost Recon Wildlands isn't a work of art. I think it's probably the best of the Ghost Recon games, but that's just my opinion. I just like the feel and scale of it. Some of the missions can be samey, but it was a strong departure from the previous games in the series, and it had a great amount of potential. They immediately threw all that out the window with the next game, but like I said, my intention isn't really to review games. Wildland lets you create your own character and play your way, and it's an excellent game for just playing around and sort of making your own games within it. Ghost Recon Wildlands is a third-person military shooter, but an open-world one. You are Nomad, leader of a special forces squad that is working with the CIA and local rebels to overthrow a massive cartel in a fictionalized Bolivia. The missions may be predetermined, but how you handle them and the order you do them in is not. You can approach every mission as a heavy assault straight in the front, or move with stealth, making targeted strikes and never letting your enemies know that you're there. The map is split into dozens of provinces, each with a focus in one of four things: security, influence, production, or smuggling. Each province has a lieutenant in charge of it, and each of these four focuses has a head. The head of security is over the lieutenants of all the security provinces, etc. This is how you dismantle the cartel, by hitting it in each of these four areas. Security provinces are devoted to the training of sicarios, arming them, or maintaining the cartel's grip on the country by making dissidents disappear. These provinces are the cogs in the cartel's military machine. Production provinces are exactly what they sound like. They're devoted to the growing of coca and processing it into cocaine. Smuggling is, again, pretty self-explanatory, and the influence provinces are split into kind of a handful of focuses. Some are about how the cartel presents itself to the people of Bolivia, like going after the cartel-controlled radio station or beginning to fracture the cult-like religious stranglehold it has on the country. And some are about how it presents itself to the world through social media or supporting musical artists and the like. Say what you want about its themes and characters, and there are definitely things here that I don't exactly agree with. I just want to talk about how the game is structured and what this can lend to a tabletop game. From the beginning, you know every province, what they do for the cartel, and how all of the pieces fit together. You might not know the name of every lieutenant, but you know the head of each part of the cartel and how the cartel is structured. You know that a man named El Sueño is in charge of the cartel, and exactly what he looks like. You know from the beginning of the game that the only way to get to him will be first drawing out his four most trusted officers, and that to get to each of them, you have to go through all their lieutenants. Thus, you have to go province to province, striking bases, raiding convoys, supporting rebel operations, and tracking down intel until you can locate or draw out the lieutenant in charge of that province. Do this in enough provinces of the same type, like targeting all the cartel's security-focused provinces, and you can get to the head of that operation. Once you've gotten to all four heads, you get a shot at El Sueño himself, in a climactic finale where you're betrayed by the rebels you fought alongside and have to race against the clock to reach the final showdown. Honestly, it's not a super satisfying ending, and I don't think it's really all that well written, and I think the good ending is the less satisfying and less well written of the two, but luckily that's not what we're stealing for a tabletop game. What I want to steal here is the structure itself. I like the idea of dropping characters into a traditional TTRPG open world, but one where they know from the beginning exactly the steps they need to take in order to defeat the main villain. It certainly doesn't need to be a military campaign or a modern one for this same concept to work. Let's say you build a campaign where the main villain already has control of a kingdom or empire. He has under him 4 advisors, each of whom has a different focus or speciality. Maybe one is his trusted general, one is a gifted mage, one is his high priest, and the last is the leader of his secret police or his spies and assassins. Under each of these 4 advisors are a number of other officials, like commanders, priests, mages, the heads of assassins guilds, intelligence officers, and the like, or maybe they're local leaders, like mayors, governors, or lords. Maybe it's 3 per advisor, for a total of 12, or maybe it's 5 for a total of 20. Maybe it's not an equal number, and there are more mages or military officers than there are spies and priests. Each of these officials is in charge of an element of the larger operation. Like, this province here is ruled by a brutal military governor, and his province is responsible for training the Dark Lord's elite personal guard. Taking him down and dismantling his operations within that province will cripple that piece of the Dark Lord's operations, and eventually make him easier to defeat. At each step, as they explore these areas, the characters are growing in power and knowledge, gaining allies, calling in favors. They're learning more and more about the nature of what's going on here, and slowly building a plan to defeat their enemy. The Dark Lord, of course, is constantly maneuvering in response to their actions, trying to stop them through reprisal attacks or stronger defenses. And it feels like this grand game of chess, back and forth, that makes the player's actions carry some weight. What if they decide to target the military structure of their enemies first? This won't permanently cripple his armies, of course, but it will make it harder in the future for him to respond with the proper force and precision that he might have had before. It might mean that the defense of their other targets is a little less organized, or that defenses have been rearranged entirely, leaving some targets just blowing in the wind and easy to reach out and take down, since they weren't prioritized as highly as some others. There's something satisfying to being able to step back and look at the whole picture, and know that in order to kill the main villain, they first have to deal with a whole array of officers and advisors. Each one they cross off their list is a definitive piece of progress made, and this feels really good. In a lot of campaigns, it's hard for players to feel like they're really making any progress at all towards their goals until they've actually accomplished them. This isn't really the GM's fault, it's just sort of the nature of the type of storytelling that usually goes along with tabletop RPG campaigns. A campaign structured this way just lets the players know at each step that they've made progress towards their goal. Similarly to Wildlands, the players don't need to know every target at the beginning. They'll likely know a few of them, but all they need to know is where those targets are, or to be more specific here, know where that target operates. Not every one of these officials needs to be ensconced in a keep with a target on their back. Variety is your friend here, and finding those targets is a beautiful way to introduce those elements of variety. They might know a city, province, or island that they need to cripple the operations in, but not who is in control of it. Perhaps no one does, and they have to first unmask the nebulous, shadowy figure before they can strike. This will help to wildly vary the type of missions that your characters go on, and the type of sessions you, as the GM, can set up. Perhaps some of these areas are old-school dungeon crawls, or some are social-heavy infiltration and deduction sessions where the players are working through political maneuvering and non-combat interactions to begin to break down a piece of the main villain's operations. With this as a basic structure, you as the GM get to just build around it, splashing in side quests, rumors, and other conflicts, perhaps a faction-building element or the need to recruit allies, all just help to make the world more complex and the game more interesting. Maybe the main villain isn't actually in charge, but his plans are underway and his far-reaching organization is structured the same way. And then it's as much about discovering and unmasking all these operations as it is about actually dismantling them. What this structure has going for it is that it provides, all through the campaign, an easy structure for the GM to prepare along, and never leaves the players in a position where they're unsure, at least for long, what to do next. In theory, they'll never be without leads or options. Completing one province or taking down one lieutenant means they just choose another to move on to. Maybe they hit a roadblock in one, or have some time to kill while waiting for a piece to fall into place. Instead of sitting around the table trying to figure out what to do next, they get to just choose another piece and go on to that. Narratively, it provides an easy way for the players to go about each and every task the way they want without completely destroying the GM's plans, and they always feel like there is progress to be made and a path forward. Running campaigns completely without true oversight or direction can work fine, but a lot of campaigns do suffer because the players reach a point where they feel aimless or feel like they don't have a clear way forward. The "what do we do now" moment in campaigns can either be a great one or a terrible one. But if that moment is happening because the players have reached the end of their current task and don't have any idea of what they're supposed to do from here, it usually detracts from a campaign, especially if it's a story-heavy campaign that really requires them to always be involved in the main events of the plot. Setting up a world and story this way allows for an easy way around this. This is also an easy thing to do a sort of perfect mirror of. Why not start with an obvious and seemingly undefeatable threat that requires 4 other full operations in place to stop? The players are essentially following this exact same structure, but by setting up all these operations instead of tearing them down. Each of these operations might seem daunting if viewed as a single unit, but broken down into a whole bunch of little pieces, each with a different lieutenant that needs to be recruited to handle it, it gives the players a complex but overall clear roadmap of steps that need to be taken in order to accomplish their goals. The point is simply taking that ability to view the grand picture from the beginning, but also see it broken down into its various compartments and single steps. It gives the players a sort of hit list, and the GM a long list of places, NPCs, and important story beats to prepare. It's easy to mix backstory connections into this and give players grounding in the world, which help to incentivize their actions. Using this as the core structure at the center of the game gives a skeleton that the players and the GM can rely on for their actions, and the GM can simply fill in the gaps with other interesting places, NPCs, quests, and events. If done right, all of the main story operations that need to be shut down will be specific and detailed enough that the GM knows what to prepare and isn't caught off guard, while open-ended enough that the players still get full freedom of choice in how they go about dismantling them. A note here to GMs thinking about setting up a campaign this way, and really just a note to GMs in general: reward creativity. If the players come up with a way to solve a problem that you hadn't foreseen, don't disparage that. If they play factions against one another or manage to neutralize one of the operations without actually killing the NPC you thought they would or destroying the item that you thought they would, don't be hand-wavy about it. Reward their creativity, but never, ever forget to have consequences for their actions. No, seriously, consequences, both good and bad, are the thing that truly make tabletop RPG worlds feel alive. Players love it when their actions get referenced later on, or they meet an NPC who is wandering the world looking for the man who killed their father.
Only one way you're walking away from this alive.
Well, I hope this gave you all something to consider if you're planning a new campaign. And if you have any other games that you think, have those structurally good bones to take and use in another tabletop RPG game, let me know down in the comments, because I'm always looking for new tools to add to my Game Master's toolbox. And I want to keep doing videos kind of in this series, exploring unique structure of some video games and how it can make sort of narratively interesting missions or campaigns in tabletop games. And, of course, as always, in the meantime, go forth, slay dragons, sling spells, roll dice, and enjoy your downtime activities.